Maya Thompson walked down Maple Street with her backpack heavy on her shoulders. The 17-year-old girl had just finished tutoring 3 middle school kids at the community center. Math was never easy for them, but Maya had patience. She knew what it felt like to struggle with numbers and equations. The afternoon sun was getting low in the sky. Maya checked her phone. It was almost 5 o'clock. Her mom would have dinner ready soon, and her dad would be home from the courthouse. Judge Harold Thompson always tried to be home for dinner with his family. Maya loved her neighborhood. She had grown up on these streets. She knew every house, every tree, every crack in the sidewalk. The old man who sat on his porch every day waved at her. Mrs. Rodriguez was watering her flowers in the front yard. 2 little kids rode their bikes in circles on the sidewalk. This was home. This was safe. Maya pulled out her earbuds and put them in her ears. She liked to listen to music while she walked. Today she chose something soft and peaceful. She hummed along quietly as she walked past the small shops and houses. 3 blocks away, Officer Derek Mills sat in his patrol car. He was tired and angry. His shift had been long and boring. Nothing exciting had happened all day. He wanted something to do, something that would make him feel important. Mills was 32 years old and had been a police officer for 8 years. He thought he was good at his job. He believed he could spot trouble from far away. He trusted his instincts, even when other people disagreed with him. The radio in his car made a crackling sound. Then a voice came through the speaker. Unit 47, we have a report of suspicious activity on Maple Street. Caller says there's a person acting strange near the community center. Mills grabbed the radio quickly. Unit 47 responding, he said. He did not ask for more details about the call. He did not ask what kind of suspicious activity. He did not ask if the person was dangerous. Mills just started his car and drove toward Maple Street fast. The call had come from an elderly woman who lived 2 streets away. She had been looking out her window when she saw Maya walking. The woman did not recognize Maya, even though Maya had lived in the neighborhood her whole life. The woman saw a young black girl with a backpack and decided something was wrong. The woman called 911. There's a suspicious person walking around, she told the operator. I think they might be up to something. The operator asked for more information. What are they doing that seems suspicious? Just walking around with a big backpack, the woman said. It doesn't look right to me. The operator wrote down the information and sent it to the police. The call went to Officer Mills. Maya was now 4 blocks from her house. She walked at her normal pace, not fast and not slow. Her music played in her ears. She thought about the math problems she had helped the kids solve today. One boy finally understood fractions. A girl figured out how to do long division. Maya felt good about helping them. She did not know that a police car was looking for her. Mills drove down Maple Street slowly. He looked at every person on the sidewalk. He saw the old man on his porch. He saw Mrs. Rodriguez with her water hose. He saw the 2 kids on bikes. Then he saw Maya. Mills looked at the young black girl walking with a backpack. In his mind, she matched what he was looking for. He did not think about other possibilities. He did not consider that she might be a student going home from school or activities. Mills saw what he expected to see. Trouble. He pulled his police car over to the curb and got out. Maya was about 50 feet ahead of him, still walking and listening to her music. Hey, Mills called out loudly. Stop right there. Maya did not hear him because of her earbuds. She kept walking. This made Mills more suspicious and more angry. He thought she was ignoring him on purpose. He thought she was trying to run away. Stop, police! Mills shouted even louder. This time Maya heard him. She stopped walking and turned around. She saw a police officer standing next to his car. She took out her earbuds and looked confused. Maya had been taught what to do if a police officer ever stopped her. Her parents had given her careful instructions. Keep your hands where they can see them. Be respectful and polite. Do what they ask. Don't argue or fight back. Maya put her hands up slightly so the officer could see them. She stood still and waited. Mills walked toward her quickly. His hand rested on his gun belt. His face looked angry and suspicious. What are you doing here? Mills demanded. Maya spoke clearly and calmly. I'm walking home from the community center, sir. I was tutoring some kids there. Let me see some ID, Mills ordered. Maya slowly reached into her backpack for her wallet. She moved carefully so the officer could see exactly what she was doing. I'm getting my wallet from my bag, she explained, but Mills did not like that she was reaching into her backpack. He became more nervous and more aggressive. Get your hands out of there, he yelled. What are you reaching for? Maya immediately pulled her hands away from her backpack. Just my wallet, sir. You asked for my ID. Turn around and put your hands on the wall, Mills commanded, pointing to a brick wall near the sidewalk. Maya was confused and scared, but she did what he said. She walked to the wall and put her hands against it. Her heart was beating fast now. Mills came up behind her. He grabbed her backpack roughly and pulled it off her shoulders. Maya did not resist. The backpack fell to the ground, and some of her school papers scattered in the wind. What's in here? Mills asked, going through her things. Just my school books and tutoring materials, Maya answered quietly. Mills found her wallet and looked. At her student ID, it had her name, her school, and her picture. Maya Thompson, age 17, honor student at Washington High School. The ID proved she was exactly who she said she was. It proved she was a student. It proved she belonged in this neighborhood, but Mills did not apologize. He did not calm down. Instead, he became more aggressive. Why were you walking so fast? He asked. I wasn't walking fast, sir, Maya replied. I was just walking normally. Don't lie to me, Mills said angrily. Maya did not understand what was happening. She had done nothing wrong. She had been polite and cooperative. She had followed all the rules her parents taught her. Other people on the street were starting to notice. Mrs. Rodriguez stopped watering her flowers and watched. The old man stood up on his porch. One person took out their phone and started recording. Mills saw people watching him. This made him feel like he needed to prove he was in control. He needed to show that he was the authority here. Put your hands behind your back, Mills ordered. Maya was now very frightened. Why, sir? What did I do wrong? Just do what I tell? You, Mills snapped. Maya slowly put her hands behind her back. Mills grabbed her wrists roughly and put handcuffs on her. The metal was cold and tight against her skin. You're under arrest for resisting an officer, Mills said. Maya could not believe what was happening. I didn't resist anything, sir. I did everything you asked. Mills pushed her toward his police car. Maya stumbled but did not fall. She was trying hard not to cry. That's when Maya made a small movement that changed everything. As Mills pushed her forward, Maya's shoulder moved slightly. Her hand shifted a tiny bit inside the handcuffs. It was nothing more than trying to keep her balance, but Mills saw something else. In his mind, Maya was reaching for something dangerous. In his mind, she was a threat that needed to be stopped immediately. Mills let go of Maya and stepped back. His hand went to his gun. She's reaching for something. Mills shouted to no one in particular. Maya turned around, confused and scared. I'm not reaching for anything. My hands are handcuffed behind my back, but Mills had already made his decision. He had already convinced himself that Maya was dangerous. He pulled out his gun and pointed it at the 17-year-old girl. Get down on the ground, Mills yelled. Maya dropped to her knees on the concrete sidewalk. Please don't hurt me, she said. I didn't do anything wrong. Mills kept his gun pointed at her. His hands were shaking slightly. His breathing was fast and shallow. The person with the phone kept recording. Mrs. Rodriguez called out, She's just a child, but Mills did not hear her. He only heard the sound of his own fear and anger. Maya knelt on the sidewalk with her hands cuffed behind her back. She looked up at the police officer pointing a gun at her. She thought about her parents. She thought about the kids she had tutored that afternoon. She thought about her plans for college and her dreams for the future. She never imagined this would be how her normal day would end. The gun fired once. The sound echoed through the quiet neighborhood like thunder. Maya fell forward onto the sidewalk. Blood began to spread across her yellow school shirt. Mrs. Rodriguez screamed. The old man called 911. The person with the phone kept recording as Mills stood over Maya's still body, his gun still in his hand on Maple Street where Maya had felt safe just minutes before. Everything had changed forever. The phone call came to Judge Harold Thompson at 5:47 p.m. He was sitting in his office at the courthouse, finishing up some paperwork before going home to dinner. Harold had been a judge for 20 years. He had seen many difficult cases and heard many sad stories, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to hear. Judge Thompson? The voice on the phone belonged to Dr. Sarah Martinez from City General Hospital. Yes, this is Judge Thompson, Harold replied, still looking at his papers. Sir, your daughter Maya has been brought to our emergency room. She's been shot and is in critical condition. You need to come right now. Harold dropped his pen. The words did not make sense to him at first. Maya was supposed to be at the community center tutoring kids. Maya was supposed to be walking home for dinner. I'm sorry, what did you say? Harold asked. Your daughter has been shot, Judge Thompson. Please come to the hospital immediately. Harold's hand started shaking. His heart began beating so fast he could hear it in his ears. He grabbed his car keys and ran out of his office without saying goodbye to anyone. The drive to the hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of Harold's life. He called his wife Janet on the way. Janet, you need to get to City General. Hospital right now, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. What's wrong? What happened? Janet asked. It's Maya. She's been hurt. She's been shot. Janet screamed on the other end of the phone. Harold could hear her crying as she hung up too. Rushed to the hospital. Harold had spent his career dealing with facts and evidence. He liked things that made sense, things that followed rules and logic. But this made no sense at all. Maya was a good kid. She got good grades, helped other students, and stayed out of trouble. Who would shoot a 17-year-old girl walking home from tutoring? When Harold arrived at the hospital, Janet was already there. She was pacing back and forth in the waiting room, crying and talking to a police officer. Where is she? Harold demanded as soon as he walked through the doors. She's in surgery, Janet said, hugging her husband tightly. They said the bullet hit her chest, they said. Janet could not finish the sentence. The police officer introduced himself. Judge Thompson, I'm Detective Johnson. I need to ask you some questions about what happened. Harold looked at the detective with confusion. I don't know what happened. I was at work. What do you mean? What happened? Someone shot my daughter. Sir, your daughter was involved in an incident with one of our officers. Officer Mills responded to a call about suspicious activity, and there was a confrontation. Harold felt like the world was spinning around him. A confrontation? Maya doesn't get into confrontations. She's never even been in trouble at school. Detective Johnson looked uncomfortable. Sir, I understand this is difficult, but I need to let you know that Officer Mills has stated that your daughter was resisting arrest and appeared to be reaching for something. He felt threatened and responded accordingly. Harold stared at the detective. 20 years of being a judge had taught him to read people, to understand when someone was telling the truth and when they were not. Something about this story did not add up. Reaching for what? Harold asked. Maya doesn't carry weapons? Maya doesn't even like violent movies. We're still investigating, sir. But I want you to know that Officer Mills is also receiving medical attention for trauma from the incident. Harold felt anger rising in his chest. His daughter was fighting for her life in surgery, and they were worried about the officer who shot her feeling traumatized. I want to see the police report, Harold said firmly. Sir, the investigation is still ongoing. I can't release those details yet. I'm a judge. I know my rights. I want to see what happened to my daughter. Detective Johnson shifted nervously. Everyone in the police department knew Judge Thompson. He had a reputation for being fair but tough. Many officers had testified in his courtroom over the years. Judge, I understand your position, but this is an active investigation. Internal Affairs is handling it now. Harold sat down next to his wife. Janet was still crying quietly. She kept looking toward the doors where the doctors had taken Maya, hoping someone would come out with good news. After 2 hours, Dr. Martinez finally emerged from the operating room. Harold and Janet jumped up immediately. "How is she?" Janet asked. "Maya is stable for now," Dr. Martinez said. "The bullet caused significant damage, but we were able to remove it. She's going to need several more surgeries, and her recovery will be long and difficult, but she's alive." Harold felt his legs get weak with relief. Janet started crying harder, but now they were tears of gratitude mixed with fear. "Can we see her?" Harold asked. "She's unconscious and will be for several days. You can see her, but she's hooked up to many machines. It might be difficult to see her like that." Harold and Janet followed the doctor to the intensive care unit. When they saw Maya lying in the hospital bed surrounded by tubes and machines, Janet had to lean against the wall to keep from falling down. Maya looked so small and fragile. Her face was pale, and there were bandages covering most of her chest. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring her heart rate and breathing. Harold sat down next to his daughter's bed and took her hand carefully. It felt cold and lifeless. "I'm here, baby," he whispered. "Daddy's here." Over the next few hours, more family members arrived at the hospital. Maya's grandparents, her aunts and uncles, and several family friends came to show their support. Harold's brother Marcus arrived around midnight. Marcus was a civil rights lawyer who had spent his career fighting cases of police brutality and discrimination. "Harold, I'm so sorry," Marcus said, hugging his brother tightly. "I don't understand what happened, Marcus. They're saying Maya was resisting arrest." "Maya has never even gotten a speeding ticket." Marcus sat down with Harold in the waiting room. Janet was in Maya's room, holding their daughter's hand and talking to her quietly. "Harold, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to want to hear it," Marcus said gently. "What?" "I've been getting calls all evening. This incident is already on social media. Someone recorded part of it on their phone. The video shows Maya on her knees with her hands behind her back when the officer shot her." Harold felt sick to his stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this doesn't look like self-defense, Harold. This looks like an unarmed teenager getting shot for no good reason." Harold put his head in his hands. As a judge, he had always believed in the system. He believed that the police officers were generally good people trying to do a difficult job. He believed that when mistakes happened, the system would correct them. But now it was his daughter lying in that hospital bed. "Marcus, I've worked with the police department for 20 years. I know most of these officers personally. They're good people." "I know you want to believe that, Harold. But good people can make terrible mistakes. And sometimes the system protects them instead of the people they hurt." Harold did not want to believe what his brother was telling him. But deep down, he knew Marcus was probably right. The next morning, Harold woke up in the uncomfortable hospital chair next to Maya's bed. His back hurt and his neck was stiff. But he did not want to leave his daughter's side. Janet had gone home briefly to shower and get some clean clothes. She promised to be back within an hour. Harold looked at Maya's face. She still looked pale and weak, but some color was returning to her cheeks. The doctor said that was a good sign. Dr. Martinez came in to check on Maya's condition. "How is she doing?" Harold asked. "Better than yesterday. Her vital signs are stable, and the swelling in her chest is going down. But Harold, I need to prepare you for something. Even when Maya wakes up, she's going to have a long road ahead of her. The bullet damaged some important muscles and nerves. She needs physical therapy, and she may always have some limitations." Harold nodded. He was just grateful that Maya was alive. "When do you think she'll wake up?" Harold asked. "Probably within the next day or two. Her body needs time to heal from the trauma and the surgery." After the doctor left, Harold sat alone with his thoughts. He kept thinking about what Marcus had said. He kept thinking about the police officer who had shot his daughter. Harold had always prided himself on being objective and fair. In his courtroom, he listened to all the evidence before making decisions. He did not let his personal feelings influence his judgment, but this was different. This was his child. Around noon, Detective Johnson came back to the hospital. "Judge Thompson, I wanted to give you an update on the investigation," he said. Harold looked up from Maya's bedside. "What kind of update?" "Officer Mills has been placed on administrative leave while we investigate the incident. He's receiving counseling and support from the department. Harold felt that anger rising in his chest again. What about Maya? What support is she getting? Sir, I understand you're upset, but we have to follow proper procedures. Officer Mills has been with the department for 8 years. He has a good record. A good record? Harold stood up. He shot an unarmed 17-year-old girl. Judge. With all due respect, we don't know all the facts yet. Officer Mills says your daughter was acting suspiciously and appeared to be reaching for something. He felt his life was in danger. Harold looked at his daughter lying unconscious in the hospital bed. Maya weighed maybe 120 pounds. Maya opened her eyes on Thursday morning. The first thing she saw was her father's face looking down at her with tears in his eyes. "Dad," she whispered. Her voice was weak and scratchy. "I'm here, baby." "I'm right here," Harold said, squeezing her hand gently. Maya tried to sit up, but sharp pain shot through her chest. She gasped and lay back down on the pillow. "Don't try to move yet," Harold said. "You've been hurt, but you're going to be okay?" Maya looked around the hospital room. She saw all the machines and tubes connected to her body. She saw her mother sleeping in a chair in the corner. "What happened to me?" Maya asked. Harold's heart broke. He had to tell his daughter that a police officer had shot her for no good reason. He had to explain something that he himself still could not understand. "Maya, you were walking home from tutoring and you were stopped by a police officer. There was a misunderstanding and you got hurt." Maya closed her eyes and tried to remember. She remembered walking down Maple Street. She remembered her music playing. She remembered the police officer yelling at her. "He shot me," Maya said quietly. "I remember now. I did everything he asked me to do, and he shot me anyway." Harold felt tears running down his face. "I know, baby. I'm so sorry this happened to you. But why?" Maya asked. "I didn't do anything wrong. I was just walking home." Harold did not have a good answer for his daughter. How do you explain racism to a 17-year-old girl who has always believed the world was fair? Janet woke up when she heard voices. She rushed to Maya's bedside and hugged her daughter carefully. "Thank God you're awake," Janet cried. "We were so scared." Over the next few hours, doctors came to check on Maya. They explained that she would need more surgery and months of physical therapy. They said she might always have some pain and weakness from her injuries. Maya listened quietly to everything they told her. She was trying to understand how her life had changed so completely in just a few minutes on Maple Street. "Can I see the news?" Maya asked her parents. Harold and Janet looked at each other nervously. They had been trying to keep Maya from seeing the media coverage of her shooting. "Maybe you should rest more first," Janet suggested. "Mom, I want to know what people are saying about what happened to me." Harold brought his tablet to Maya's bedside. He showed her some of the news stories about the shooting. Maya read the headlines. "Police officer shoots unarmed teen. Community demands answers in police shooting. Video shows teen was not threatening officer." "There's a video?" Maya asked. Harold nodded. "A neighbor recorded part of what happened." "Maya, you don't need to see it right now. I want to see it, Dad." Harold found the video online and showed it to Maya. She watched herself kneeling on the sidewalk with her hands behind her back. She watched Officer Mills pointing his gun at her. She watched herself fall to the ground. Maya started crying. "I looked so scared in that video." "You were scared, baby." "Anyone would have been scared." Janet sighed. "But I did everything right. I was polite and cooperative. I didn't fight or run away. Why wasn't that enough?" Harold sat down next to Maya's bed. "Maya, I need you to understand something. What happened to you was not your fault. You did everything perfectly. This was about the officer making a terrible mistake." "Was it really a mistake, Dad? Or did he shoot me because I'm black?" Harold had been dreading this question. As a judge, he had seen many cases where race played a role in how people were treated by the police. But he had always tried to believe that most officers were fair and unbiased. Now, his own daughter was asking him to face a truth he had been avoiding. "Maya, I think race might have been a factor in what happened to you, and that's something we're going to have to deal with." Maya was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Dad, I want to do something about this. I don't want this to happen to other kids." "Right now, you need to focus on getting better," Harold said. "No, Dad, I need to speak up. If I stay quiet, people will forget about what happened to me. Officer Mills will go back to work and he might hurt someone else." Harold was amazed by his daughter's strength. She had been shot 3 days ago, and she was already thinking about helping other people. That afternoon, Marcus came to visit Maya in the hospital. He brought her flowers and some books to read while she recovered. "Uncle Marcus, Dad says you're a civil rights lawyer," Maya said. "That's right. I help people who have been treated unfairly by the police or the government." "Will you help me?" Marcus looked at Harold, who nodded. "Maya, your case is a little complicated because your father is a judge. There might be conflicts of interest. But yes, I'll help you however I can." "I want to sue Officer Mills," Maya said. "And I want to sue the police department." "That's definitely something we can consider. But first, we need to see what happens." "With the criminal investigation," Maya looked confused. "What criminal investigation?" Marcus explained that the district attorney's office would decide whether to charge Officer Mills with a crime. If they decided to prosecute him, there would be a trial. "What if they decide not to charge him?" Maya asked. "Then we would file a civil lawsuit against him and the police department. We would try to get you money for your medical bills and for what you've suffered." "I don't want money," Maya said. "I want Officer Mills to face consequences for what he did. And I want the police department to change how they train officers." Harold was proud of his daughter, but he was also worried about her. Taking on the police department would not be easy. They had lawyers and resources. They would try to make Maya look bad. "Maya, if we do this, it's going to be very difficult," Harold warned. "They're going to investigate everything about your life. They're going to try to find reasons to blame you for what happened." "Let them try," Maya said firmly. "I have nothing to hide. I'm a good student. I volunteer in my community. I've never been in trouble with the police before this." Over the next few days, Harold started learning more about Officer Mills and his history with the police department. Marcus had found the 4 previous complaints against Mills. Harold was shocked when he read them. The first complaint was from 2 years ago. A young black man named Jerome Washington said Mills had pulled him over for a broken taillight and then searched his car without permission. Mills had roughed him up when Jerome asked why he was being searched. The second complaint was from 18 months ago. A black woman named Lisa Chun said Mills had used excessive force when arresting her teenage son for shoplifting. She said Mills threw the boy to the ground and injured his shoulder, even though the boy was not resisting. The third complaint was from a year ago. An elderly black man named Robert Turner said Mills had pushed him during a traffic stop and called him disrespectful names. The fourth complaint was from 6 months ago. A black college student named Maria Santos said Mills had stopped her while she was jogging and accused her of running from a crime scene. When she tried to show him her student ID, Mills grabbed her arm so hard it left bruises in every case. The police department had investigated the complaint and found that Mills had done nothing wrong. They said the complainants were lying or exaggerating what happened. Harold could not believe what he was reading. Mills had a clear pattern of targeting black citizens and using unnecessary force against them. But the police department had ignored all the warning signs. "Marcus, how is this possible?" Harold asked. "How could they dismiss all of these complaints?" "It happens all the time, Harold. Police departments protect their officers. They assume that citizens who complain are lying, and they assume that officers are telling the truth. But there were 4 different people over 2 years. They couldn't all be lying." "Of course not. But it's easier for the department to dismiss complaints than to admit they have a problem officer." Harold was starting to understand how broken the system really was. He had spent 20 years believing that justice was fair and impartial. Now he was seeing how justice worked differently for different people. Harold decided to recuse himself from all cases involving the police department. He could not be objective when his own daughter had been hurt by an officer, but removing himself from police cases created problems for Harold. Many of his colleagues at the courthouse started treating him differently. Some of them thought he was being disloyal to law enforcement. Judge Patricia Williams stopped Harold in the hallway one day. "Harold, I heard you recused yourself from police cases," she said. "Don't you think you're overreacting a little bit?" "My daughter was shot by a police officer, Patricia." "How is it overreacting to avoid conflicts of interest?" "But Harold, you've always been fair to law enforcement. Officers trust you. If you turn against them now, it sends a bad message." Harold stared at his colleague in disbelief. "Turn against them? Patricia, an officer shot my 17-year-old daughter while she was handcuffed and kneeling on the ground. What message does it send if I don't care about that?" Judge Williams looked uncomfortable. "I'm just saying that maybe you should wait to see all the facts before you make any decisions." "I've seen the video, Patricia. What other facts do I need?" Harold walked away from the conversation feeling more isolated than ever. He was starting to realize that even people he thought were friends might not support him and Maya. Meanwhile, the investigation into Maya's shooting was moving slowly. 6 months after Maya was shot, prosecutor Sarah Chun announced that she would charge Officer Derek Mills with assault with a deadly weapon and excessive force under color of authority. Harold got the phone call at his office on a Tuesday morning. "Judge Thompson, this is Sarah Chun. I wanted to let you know personally that we've decided to move forward with criminal charges against Officer Mills." Harold felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Miss Chun. What charges are you filing?" "Assault with a deadly weapon and excessive force under color of authority. If convicted on both counts, Mills could face up to 8 years in prison." Harold had hoped for attempted murder charges, but he understood that those would be harder to prove. These charges were still serious and could result in real consequences for Mills. "When will the trial start?" Harold asked. "Probably not for another 6 to 8 months. Mills' defense team will file motions to dismiss, and we'll need time to prepare our case. But I wanted you to know that we're committed to getting justice for Maya." Harold thanked Chun and immediately called Maya to tell her the news. "They're charging him, baby," Harold said when Maya answered her phone. Maya was quiet for a moment. She was at physical therapy, working to rebuild the strength in her chest and shoulder. "What charges?" Maya finally asked. Harold explained the charges and the possible sentence. "It's not attempted murder," Maya said. "No, but these are still serious charges. And the important thing is that Mills will have to face a jury and answer for what he did to you." Maya had mixed feelings about the charges. She was glad that Mills would face trial, but she was disappointed that the charges seemed too light for shooting an unarmed teenager. "Dad, what if he gets acquitted?" "Then we'll pursue the civil case even more aggressively. But Maya, let's focus on this trial first. We have a good prosecutor and we have strong evidence." Maya's physical recovery had been slow but steady. She had regained most of the movement in her arms and could walk without assistance. But she still had pain in her chest, especially when she tried to do physical activities. The doctors said some of the pain might be permanent. Maya had to accept that her body would never be exactly the same as it was before the shooting. Maya had also been seeing a counselor to help her deal with the emotional trauma of being shot. She had nightmares about the incident and felt anxious whenever she saw police officers, but Maya refused to let the trauma control her life. She had returned to school and was maintaining her good grades. She had also become an activist, speaking at rallies and community meetings about police reform. When news of the charges against Mills became public, reactions in the community were mixed. Many people, especially in the black community, were happy that Mills would face trial. They saw it as a rare example of a police officer being held accountable for his actions. But some people, especially police officers and their supporters, thought the charges were unfair. They organized their own rallies supporting Mills and criticizing Prosecutor Chun. Harold found himself in the middle of these competing opinions. Some of his colleagues at the courthouse supported him and Maya. Others thought he was being too harsh on law enforcement. Judge Patricia Williams approached Harold in the courthouse cafeteria one day. "Harold, I hope you know what you're doing. She said, "This trial is going to be very divisive for the community." Patricia, my daughter was shot while handcuffed and kneeling on the ground. How is seeking justice for that divisive? Because it sends a message that we don't support our police officers. Crime is already a problem in this city. If we start prosecuting officers for split-second decisions, who's going to want to be a police officer? Harold stared at his colleague. So you think officers should be able to shoot unarmed teenagers without consequences? That's not what I said. I just think there are better ways to handle these situations than putting good officers in prison. Mills shot my 17-year-old daughter, Patricia. How is he a good officer? Judge Williams walked away without answering Harold's question. Harold realized that some people would never understand his position. No matter what evidence they saw, Harold also faced pressure from some members of the black community who thought he should be doing more to support Maya's case. A community activist named Reverend James Taylor visited Harold at his home one evening. "Judge Thompson, we appreciate that you've recused yourself from police cases," Reverend Taylor said. "But some people think you should be more vocal about supporting the prosecution of Officer Mills." "Reverend Taylor, I'm trying to be careful not to interfere with the trial. If I make public statements, Mills' lawyers could claim that I'm prejudicing potential jurors. But Judge, your silence makes it look like you don't care about what happened to Maya." "I care more than you could possibly understand," Harold replied. "But I have to think about what's best for Maya's case, not what looks good politically." Harold was trying to balance many competing interests. He wanted justice for Maya, but he also wanted to be careful not to do anything that might hurt the prosecution's case. Meanwhile, Mills had hired an expensive defense team led by a famous criminal lawyer named Robert Morrison. Morrison specialized in defending police officers and had never lost a case involving excessive force charges. Morrison immediately began attacking the prosecution's case in the media. He gave interviews claiming that Mills was a dedicated officer who had made a split-second decision to protect himself from what he perceived as a threat. Officer Mills had less than 2 seconds to decide whether Maya Thompson was reaching for a weapon, Morrison told reporters. In that situation, any reasonable officer would have acted the same way. Morrison also tried to make Maya look bad. He leaked information about Maya's school disciplinary record, which showed that she had been late to class several times and had once been caught using her phone during a test. Harold was furious when he saw Morrison's tactics. "They're trying to put Maya on trial instead of Mills," Harold told Marcus. "That's exactly what they're doing," Marcus replied. "Morrison knows that if he can make Maya look like a troublemaker, some jurors might think she deserved what happened to her." Harold wanted to fight back against Morrison's attacks, but Prosecutor Chun advised him to stay quiet. "Judge Thompson, I know this is frustrating, but we need to let our evidence speak for itself," Chun said. "If you start making public statements, it could backfire." Harold trusted Chun, but it was hard to watch his daughter being attacked in the media while he remained silent. Maya was also frustrated by Morrison's tactics. She was particularly angry about the focus on her minor school disciplinary issues. "Dad, I was late to class a few times and I used my phone during a test once. How does that justify shooting me?" "It doesn't justify anything, Maya." Morrison is just trying to confuse the issues. Well, it's working. "I've seen people online saying that I must have been a troublemaker if I had disciplinary problems at school." Harold hugged his daughter. "Maya, people who think like that were never going to be on our side anyway. The jurors will hear all the evidence and they'll make the right decision." As the trial date approached, both sides prepared their cases. Carefully, Prosecutor Chun planned to call Maya as her star witness. She also planned to call the neighbor who had recorded the video, several other witnesses, and expert witnesses on police tactics. Chun's strategy was simple: show the jury that Mills used excessive force against an unarmed teenager who was complying with his commands. Morrison's strategy was more complex. He planned to argue that Mills reasonably believed Maya was reaching for a weapon. He also planned to argue that Maya's behavior during the encounter was suspicious and threatening. Morrison hired his own expert witnesses who would testify that Mills followed proper police procedures. 2 weeks before the trial started, Harold made a difficult decision. He decided to take a temporary leave of absence from his position as a judge. "I need to be able to support Maya fully during the trial," Harold told the chief judge. "I can't do that if I'm worried about my judicial duties." "Harold, are you sure about this? Taking leave could hurt your career." "My daughter is more important than my career," Harold replied. "If seeking justice for Maya hurts my career, then maybe I'm in the wrong profession." Harold's decision to take leave made headlines in the local newspapers. Some people praised him for putting his family first. Others criticized him for abandoning his judicial responsibilities. Harold did not care about the criticism. His only concern was being there for Maya during what would be the most difficult period of her life, the trial of Officer Derek Mills began on a cold Monday morning in February. Harold and Maya arrived at the courthouse early, surrounded by reporters and protesters. Maya walked into the courthouse with her head held high. She was wearing a simple blue dress and looked every bit the honor student she had always been. Mills arrived with his lawyers a few minutes later. He was wearing his dress police uniform with all of his medals and ribbons. Morrison wanted the jury to see Mills as a decorated officer, not as someone who had shot an unarmed teenager. The jury selection process took 3 days. Both sides questioned potential jurors carefully about their views on police officers and racial issues. The final jury consisted of 6 men and 6 women. 4 jurors were white, 4 were black, 2 were Hispanic. Maya took the witness stand on the 3rd day of the trial. She had been nervous for weeks about this moment, but now that it was here, she felt calm and determined. Prosecutor Chun approached the witness stand with a gentle smile. "Maya, can you tell the jury what happened on the afternoon you were shot?" Maya spoke clearly and calmly. "I was walking home from the community center where I had been tutoring some middle school kids. I was listening to music and thinking about dinner with my family." "What happened when Officer Mills approached you?" "At first, I didn't hear him because of my earbuds. When I finally heard him yelling, I stopped immediately and took out my earbuds. I put my hands where he could see them, just like my parents taught me." Maya described how she had tried to cooperate with Mills' demands. She explained how she had attempted to show him her ID when he asked for it. "What happened when you reached for your wallet?" Chun asked. "Officer Mills yelled at me to get my hands out of my backpack. So I did. I pulled my hands away immediately and put them where he could see them." "Then what happened?" "He told me to turn around and put my hands on the wall. I did exactly what he said. Then he handcuffed me and said I was under arrest for resisting an officer." Maya's voice stayed steady as she described the most traumatic moments of her life. "What happened next, Maya?" "Officer Mills was pushing me toward his car. I stumbled a little bit and moved my shoulder to keep my balance. That's when he started yelling that I was reaching for something." "Were you reaching for anything?" "No. My hands were handcuffed behind my back. I couldn't reach for anything even if I wanted to." "What did you do when Officer Mills pulled out his gun?" Maya's voice cracked slightly. "I dropped to my knees and begged him not to hurt me. I told him I hadn't done anything wrong." "What happened next?" Maya was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, tears were running down her face. "He shot me. I fell forward onto the concrete, and I could feel blood spreading across my chest. I thought I was going to die." Several jurors were also crying as Maya finished her testimony. When it was his turn to cross-examine Maya, Morrison tried to poke holes in her story. "Miss Thompson, you admit that you initially ignored Officer Mills when he called out to you, correct?" "I had earbuds in. I couldn't hear him at first. But from Officer Mills' perspective, it would have looked like you were ignoring his commands and trying to get away, wouldn't it?" "I suppose so, but as soon as I heard him, I stopped and cooperated." Morrison spent an hour trying to make Maya's actions seem suspicious or threatening, but Maya remained calm and consistent in her answers. "Miss Thompson, when you reached into your backpack, you knew Officer Mills was watching you, didn't you?" "Yes, but he had asked for my ID. I was trying to get my wallet to show him my identification." But you didn't tell him what you were doing before you reached in, did you? I did tell him. I said I was getting my wallet. Morrison showed Maya a video replay of the incident. Miss Thompson, can you point to the moment in this video where you told Officer Mills you were getting your wallet? Maya watched the video carefully. The audio was not very clear, and it was hard to hear exactly what she had said. The audio isn't very clear in the video, Maya said. But I remember telling him I was getting my wallet. Morrison pressed his advantage. Miss Thompson, isn't it possible that you're remembering things differently than they actually happened? Traumatic experiences can affect memory, can't they? Maya looked directly at Morrison. Sir, I remember exactly what happened that day. I was shot for no reason while I was handcuffed and on my knees. That's not something I would forget or remember wrong. Harold was proud of how Maya handled Morrison's aggressive questioning. She never lost her composure or got angry, even when Morrison implied that she was lying after Maya testified. Prosecutor Chun called several other witnesses. Mrs. Rodriguez, the neighbor who had witnessed the shooting, testified about what she saw. Maya was just a child walking home, Mrs. Rodriguez said. She wasn't doing anything wrong. When the officer stopped her, she did everything he asked. I couldn't believe it when he shot her. Morrison tried to discredit Mrs. Rodriguez's testimony by pointing out that she was far away and might not have seen everything clearly. The person who recorded the video also testified. The video was played multiple times for the jury, and each viewing seemed to make Mills' actions look worse. Chun called Dr. Martinez, Maya's surgeon, to testify about the severity of her injuries. The bullet caused significant damage to muscle and nerve tissue in Maya's chest, Dr. Martinez explained. She's lucky to be alive. A few inches in either direction, and the wound would have been fatal. Chun also called expert witnesses on police. TAC-TICS Dr. William Johnson, a former police chief who now taught at the police academy, testified that Mills had used excessive force. There was no reasonable justification for shooting Miss Thompson, Dr. Johnson said. She was handcuffed and on her knees. She posed no threat to the officer or anyone else. Morrison's cross-examination of Dr. Johnson was intense. Dr. Johnson, have you ever been a street police officer responding to dangerous calls? Yes, I was a patrol officer for 15 years before becoming a chief. And in those 15 years, did you ever have to make a split-second decision about whether someone posed a threat to you? Many times. And isn't it true that officers sometimes have to act on incomplete information? Yes, that's true. So, isn't it possible that Officer Mills reasonably believed Miss Thompson was reaching for a weapon? Dr. Johnson shook his head. Not under these circumstances. Miss Thompson was handcuffed and complying with commands. There was no reasonable basis for believing she was a threat. When it was Morrison's turn to present his defense, he called several character witnesses for Mills. Mills' partner testified that he was a dedicated officer who always tried to de-escalate situations. Mills' supervisor testified that Mills had received commendations for his service and had never been found guilty of misconduct. Morrison did not mention the 4 previous complaints against Mills, because they had all been dismissed by the police department. Morrison's main witness was Dr. Patricia Stevens, a use of force expert who testified for police officers in criminal cases. Officer Mills had to make a decision in less than 2 seconds, Dr. Stevens said. Miss Thompson made a sudden movement that could reasonably be interpreted as reaching for a weapon. Officer Mills acted within the bounds of reasonable police procedure. Prosecutor Chun's cross-examination of Dr. Stevens was devastating. Dr. Stevens, how many times have you testified in criminal cases involving police officers? Approximately 40 times. And in how many of those cases did you testify that the officer's actions were unreasonable or excessive? Dr. Stevens hesitated. I don't recall the exact number. Is the answer 0, Dr. Stevens? I testify based on the facts of each case. Dr. Stevens, you've been paid over $200,000 in the past 5 years to testify in defense of police officers. Haven't you? I'm paid for my expertise, not my opinions. But isn't it true that your income depends on police officers being found not guilty? Morrison objected to the question, but the damage was done. The jury could see that Dr. Stevens was essentially a professional witness for police officers. The most dramatic moment of the trial came when Mills himself took the witness stand. Morrison questioned Mills about his background and training. Mills came across as professional and sincere. Officer Mills, can you describe what happened on the afternoon you encountered Miss Thompson? I received a call about suspicious activity in the area. When I saw Miss Thompson, her behavior seemed evasive and concerning. She ignored my initial commands and then made furtive movements. What did you think when Miss Thompson reached into her backpack? I thought she might be reaching for a weapon. I had to act quickly to protect myself and the community. What went through your mind when you decided to use your firearm? Mills looked directly at the jury. I thought my life was in danger. I had less than 2 seconds to make a decision. I did what any reasonable officer would have done in that situation. When Prosecutor Chun cross-examined Mills, she was relentless. Officer Mills, Miss Thompson was 17 years old and weighed about 120 pounds, correct? I didn't know her age or weight at the time. But you could see that she was a small young person, couldn't you? Size doesn't matter if someone has a weapon. Officer Mills, Miss Thompson's hands were handcuffed behind her back when you shot her, weren't they? Yes, but she had been making suspicious movements. What kind of weapon did you think Miss Thompson could access with her hands? Handcuffed behind her back? Mills hesitated. I thought she might have something concealed on her body. Officer Mills, you searched Miss Thompson before handcuffing her, didn't you? I did a quick pat-down, yes. And you didn't find any weapons, did you? No. So, when you shot Miss Thompson, you knew she had no weapons, correct? I thought she might have something I missed. Chun pressed her advantage. Officer Mills, have you ever shot an unarmed person before? Morrison objected, but the judge allowed the question. No, Mills answered. Officer Mills, in your 8 years as a police officer, how many times have you drawn your weapon? I don't remember exactly. More than 10 times? Probably. And how many times have you actually fired your weapon? Mills was quiet for a long moment. Twice.